Right, everybody, let's get started. So here is 8.1. All right, now we're going to be looking at perpetual inventory, right? And this time we're actually going to be looking at how to cost the goods sold, right? We're going to be looking at the costing methods, all right? So what chapter 7 was dealing with how to make the purchases and how to deal with sales. Now this is actually how we're going to actually determine our cost of goods sold. So here we are looking at the three different costing methods that exist in perpetual inventory. So again, you will see FIFO, which is the first in, first out. So think of it like having a grocery store, right? You sell your perishable goods. You need to sell the first batch versus the older batch or the newer batches, okay? We're also going to be looking into LIFO, which we've seen before, right? We're looking at, for example, things that have a longer life shelf. So it doesn't matter whether you sell the last ones first or the first ones first, doesn't matter. Same thing with moving average. Now, in this case, periodic was weighted average. Perpetual, it's moving average. And when we go ahead and take a look at when we look at our perpetual inventory, right? When we look at the first one, first in, first out, we'll understand why instead of calling it weighted average, it's going to be moving average, because every time we make a purchase, we update our inventory. Every time we make a sale, we're going to be updating our inventory. So it's actually going to move the average along, okay? And of course, with that given example here is going to be things that are usually necessities, things that you have to have on a daily that doesn't really have a shelf life, right? So I gave water bottles as an example. And still today, we're not going to show you what a specific ID is going to look like. Okay? So let's go ahead and dive right into our first costing method again, which is the first in, first out method. So again, this time, our formulas look identical. The only things that you are going to see different is that your goods available is going to be your total cost of 1 plus your total cost of 2 to equal your goods available. What does that mean? Well, when we look at our inventory table, okay, and it's also going to be in your Google Classroom, it actually looks slightly different. So in order to calculate your goods available, you're going to see what the batches that you originally purchased for, and you're going to add them up to get a total of goods available. And of course, you're going to be adding your quantity 1 with your quantity 2 to get your number of items available, okay? To solve for your cost of goods sold is going to be your quantity times your cost per item to get your cost of goods sold. And again, when we look into our inventory worksheet, you'll understand why these formulas are going to be how they are. Okay. Ending inventory, we're going to be looking at your total cost minus the cost of goods sold, which should give you your ending inventory. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our first problem here. So here, our first thing that we did on June 1st was we made a purchase of 100 toys for $1.25 each, with freight costing me $25. Okay, so there's my journal right here. I journalized, I recognize that this is perpetual, so I'm going to go ahead and put in toys automatically. Okay, so here is why this is where the section of your inventory worksheet is going to look different, okay? Instead of having your purchases all at the top, what you're going to have is you're going to have sections. On the left side is going to be your cost of goods sold section. The middle section is going to be where your purchases are, or your inventory purchases, right? So tallying up what you actually have. And then because of this this PowerPoint so small, I eliminated the 3 on the left, and that's going to be your inventory on hand. So you have the left is going to be your cost of goods sold section. Your middle is going to be your inventory purchases. And then the right is going to be your inventory on hand. And what you're going to notice is that you're going to be realizing that you're going to be going in a pattern. You're going to recognize from left to right, and you're going to go back and forth, left to right, left to right. In this case, my first thing that happened to me on June 1st wasn't I sold something. I made a purchase. So I can skip part 1, move into the middle section. Middle section tells me I have 100 toys. It's going to cost me $1.25, and my total purchases is going to be, what is my total purchases going to be?
125.
125 plus $25 freight gives me
150.
Okay, so 125. Yes, it gives you 150. And then what is my cost per item going to be?
$1.50.
$1.50. Once I get here, this is a method that you can use. I teach this method first, and then once you get more used to understanding how to do it, you can drop this method. All right? So this method is, I'm going to go ahead and color code it to let me know that this is my first batch right here. All right? Okay. Then scenario number 2 says, here on June 3rd, I sold 55 toys for $5 each. Okay? So here, I recognize that I made my sale, and here I need to update my inventory. Now, I don't know what it is just yet, but I've already calculated it for you, right? But here is how I solve for my cost of goods sold. I'm going to bring it to my cost of goods sold section right here. I know that I sold 55 units, right? Now, how much is it going to cost me to sell my first, 55 units? How much is it going to cost me to sell one item? I'm sorry, that's what I meant to ask.
$1.50.
It's going to be $1.50. You're going to take it from this right here, and you're going to transfer it over into your cost per item, all right? So, for me, selling 55 items, how much is it going to cost me to sell all 55 items?
$82.50.
It's going to cost me $82.50, okay? So here's method number 2, all right? So the first method I'm using here is I'm color coding my items. The second method I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this. I am going to subtract it right out of my batch, all right? I'm going to take part 1 and I'm going to transfer into the middle saying I got rid of or I sold 55 units. So what is 100 minus 55?
45.
45. And what is 150 minus 82.50?
67.50.
All right. So now my first batch starts at 100. Now it becomes 45 items left, and it's for $67.50. Okay. So now the next one here. On June 5th, you made another purchase of 100 toys for $1.28, and my freight is $26. So now I'm bringing it back to my inventory worksheet. So I recognize that I have 100 items, and it's for $1.28. So what's my total purchase price here?
$128.
128, yeah.
128 plus my freight. What's my total cost?
154.
154, making my cost per item
$1.54.
$1.54. And because this is my next batch, right, my second batch I've involved with, I'm going to go ahead and color code it again. So that now in my mind, I know that my first batch is yellow, my second batch is going to be red. All right? And this is because I'm moving along down the line. You're going to easily lose track if you don't find some kind of methodology to keep track of your numbers. So in this case, I'm color coding it, and that's how I'm keeping track of my numbers. Right? So then what happened on June 10th is you made a purchase of 100 toys for $1.30 and your freight is 27. So here, I've already did the calculation for you, so you don't have to do it for you don't have to calculate it. Here I've indicated that I have a third batch and I decided to color code it green. That way I know what my batches are available and I know what is there. Okay? So here I have a total of 3 batches, yellow, red, and green. And because I'm using Fifo, I know which batch came first. The yellow one came first, then the red, and then the green. All right? Okay. So then what has happened when on June 12th I sold another 120 toys? Okay. I sold 120. If I'm using FIFO, which batch am I going to be taking from first?
Yellow.
Yellow. Good. Now, is yellow enough to cover for the whole 120 items?
No.
No. So that means I got to take from a second batch. And how much remaining do I need to take from my second batch?
75.
Good. So we have 45 and 75 to equal us 120, right? And so we recognize that the yellow batch is going to be taken from the red one, from the yellow. Then the second batch of 75 is going to be taken directly from the red. So here, we already know that the total for 45 is going to be eliminated. So we don't need to do a calculation there. We only need to do a calculation for the red one. But so here, I'm going to do one at a time. So here, I'm going to eliminate the 45. So by knowing that 45 is going to cost me for the $67.50, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that right away. So making my yellow batch become 0. Okay? Now I need to calculate for my red batch. My red batch is going to be for $1.54. All right, if we calculate that, it should give you $115.50. And then I'm going to go ahead and subtract that out of the red batch, making my batch from 100 turn into 25. Okay? So then that just leaves me with my green batch of 100 and my red batch of 25. All right? And then we do our calculations here on what those were. Since we split them up, when you journalize it, you can't split it up. You have to do it as a grand total of 120. So that's my total cost of goods sold right there. Okay? And then lastly, your last thing that was written on there was that you had a total of 125 units left. So by adding these two numbers together, the green batch and the yellow batch, the green batch and the red batch, you have a total of $195.50. So that's how you do the calculations for perpetual inventory, okay? For this entire week, next week, we're going to be spending a lot of time, or not a lot of time, but we're going to have multiple exercises of doing this over and over again. And once you get comfortable with it, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys choose and determine what makes best sense for you. For me, I'll tell you this. I don't do colors or calculations. I just do it straight into the inventory on hand. But you want to make sure whatever works best for you. In this kind of sense, I'm keeping myself organized. I know when I sell something that I'm subtracting it right away from my worksheet and I can see what has happened. All right? So now I am at 125 with the 195.50, right? So with that being said, what happens when you have beginning inventory? Well, let's see. So on June 15, you have a beginning inventory of 125 costing you $195.50. All right? So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry those values over. Bringing my red batch and also bringing down my green batch. Okay, I can't mix them together because of the concept of FIFO, right? FIFO doesn't allow me to combine it. It allows me to only keep them separate. Okay? So there it is. I have 25 and 100 right there, red batch and green batch. So then the scenario says that on June 18, we sold another 90 toys at $5 each. Okay. So here, we're going to recognize we have a total of 90 items to sell, right? If we're still utilizing the FIFO, which batch am I going to be taking out of?
The red.
25.
Right.
Red.
Correct. The red batch. And we're also going to take the remainder of the other amount for 65, right? Because we sold 80. So the remainder of the 65 is going to be taken out of the green one, right? So here, what is 25 times 154? Pretty straightforward. We're taking the whole batch. So we're eliminating the $38.50, right? Okay. And we're going to go ahead and just subtract that right out to make our batch red disappear. Okay. For our green batch, we know that it's $1. It's $1. It's going to cost us $1.57 to sell. So what's my total I'm going to calculate here?
102.
$102.05.
102.05. Okay. Once we've solved for that, I'm going to eliminate it from this work here, making my new green batch to be 35 items left, costing me a total of $54.95. And I also calculate on this side my total cost of goods sold, right? I have a total of 90 items, and here I also recognize that the cost of the entire 90 items is going to be $140.55. So then, what happens on June 21st? You made another purchase of 100 toys at $1.32, with the freight being $26. So, let's calculate this. What's 100 times 132?
Is 132.
132. My total cost is going to be
It is 158.
158, making it cost per item is going to be
$1.58.
$1.58. And because this is a new batch, I'm going to color code it. All right. So then, next thing that happened on the 25th is you also made another purchase of 100 toys for $1.35, and your freight is $27. So here, I've already done the calculation for you. I recognize that I have a new batch, so I'm going to highlight it and make it another color that I haven't used before. So in this case, I've already utilized red, yellow, and now I've indicated this one as orange, right, as my third and new batch. Okay. So then the scenario here on the 27th is I sold a total of 120 toys. So I know I have to sell 120. Which batch am I going to eliminate first?
The green batch.
Green batch. And then the one after that's going to be
The blue.
the blue.
The blue.
So I'm going to take the 35, which is the total amount of my green, right? And I know just by looking at it, the whole thing is going to be for $54.95. Okay, don't need to do any calculation there. So what I'm going to do is, because I'm going to do one at a time, I'm going to eliminate that green batch to make it 0. All right? Then I'm going to calculate my 85 from the blue batch, right, costing me $1.58. The whole thing is going to cost me to sell 85 items is going to be 134.30. I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that from my batch here to bring my blue value to be 15 items remaining to be at $23.70. I still have my orange batch, but it's way at the top up there. Now it looks like my first in, first out, my first one that came there was orange. But in this case, that's not the case. Right? Lastly, what happened on the 28th is you sold another 65 toys. And one thing that you should do is on April 30th, you should have a total of 50 toys remaining. So here, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the 15 from the blue. And then I'm going to eliminate 50 items from my orange batch. All right? Fill in the calculation there. We already know that this whole thing's eliminated, right? And of course, we're going to eliminate the 50 items, bringing me a grand total of orange batch is going to be 50, which is my ending balance, and it's going to be for a total of $81 even. All right? And here's my calculation for my cost of goods sold. All right? So, any questions in regards to how this calculation is going to work? This one's it's much easier, but it's also much more complicated.
All right, so I have nothing right now.
Okay.
I have to do it myself before I really.
Okay.
No, I'm good for right now.
All right. So, let me see what time it is. It is exactly 2:30. So, let's take a quick break real quick and soak in what you just learned. And then when we come back from the break, we'll go ahead and complete the exercise.